Here.
Councilmember Vaccaro?
Here.
Councilmember Williams?
Here.
Vice Mayor Bertani is absent, and Mayor Moy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our invocation tonight will be Pastor Alex English from the Fairfield Church of Christ. Hello, Pastor.
Good evening. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, I want to come before you and just thank you for another day. Thank you for today's meeting, today's proceedings, and for the opportunity for us to gather here together. God, help us to remember the things that you have given us stewardship over and to remember what belongs to you. God, this is your city. This is your state. This is your country. This is your world. But God, so often we lose track and lose sight of that, and we start to believe that our hands have created things, that our talents and our abilities have created things, and we miss all that you have blessed. We miss all that you have set in motion. God, help us to be good stewards. Help us to be responsible. Help us to lead with wisdom and to honor you. God, I call upon you now that as this meeting goes forward, that we would be mindful of that and be mindful of who you are and what you have allowed us to have some say in for a time. Because God, we know that none of these things last forever, and that you have called us into service, God. Many here are civil servants, and God, help us to remember what that means. Help us to remember the heart and the core of that, and to pursue that for the good of the people. God, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for loving. Thank you for being patient with us. And thank you for being here and your spirit falling upon this place. It's in your name that I now pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. So let's see, I'm going to have Doug do the Pledge of Allegiance today. Lead us in it, please. Thank you, Councilman.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. We're going to go ahead and go to council reports, and we're going to start with Councilman Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot to report on other than I just want to remind everybody about the listening tour is in District 3 at the Mancus Park, little building right there in the parking lot this Saturday at 11 o'clock. And that's all I have for today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Panduro.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to report that myself and some of my colleagues attended the APCA meeting, and APCA stands for American Petroleum and Convenience Store Association. So they have been in existence for 10 years, and they represent our local gas stations and convenience stores that are in our neighborhoods. So they met about 2 weeks ago now, and they come together and they talk about any legislation that's coming down and it's going to affect them, whether around like petty theft was a big issue right now. The ban on tobacco, the flavored tobacco was a big topic as well. And so they had other legislators that were there talking to them about any bills coming down. So it was a really great meeting to be able to connect with our local business owners in our communities. I also attended the Green Valley Fire Safe Council had a fire safety expo over at Solano Community College, and I wanted to thank our Fairfield Fire Department for being there and engaging with the community. They had their fire course out for the kids, which is really fun to watch our families out there getting engaged and learning about disaster preparedness and fire prevention. So it was a really great program for families the first time it happened, and I hope they do it again because it was really great to have all those resources in one spot. And lastly, I wanted to shout out Sustainable Solano is hosting a community cleanup of the Linear Park Trail on Saturday the 29th at 10 a.m. And it's going to be over at the near Trinity Lutheran Church at the Dover entrance of the park. And they're a really great organization if anybody's interested in that cleanup or in any other environmental or community programming. They do a lot of great stuff. And they have a website that you can go to, and it's www.sustainablesolano.org to get information on that cleanup and any other community event that they're doing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Vaccaro.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First of all, welcome everybody. Just a couple of quick things. I know on April 11th, we had our general plan study session. Pretty successful. We had some citizens there that I think had a lot to say. And we did come up with some, well, not some ideas, but I think come in June is when we will be giving direction from as a council about the general plan. So obviously we have a lot to talk about and a lot to think about over the next couple of months. Also, last week, myself and some of my colleagues up here went to the League of Cities Leadership Summit, and I was really happy because actually CSAC, which is the county organization, actually participated with League of Cities maybe for the first time ever, according to some of the people that were there from the county. So that was, and the one issue that we talked about more than anything was the homeless problem in California. And as you know, myself, or maybe some people don't know, myself and Councilwoman Pandoro sit on the Cap Solano board, along with two other council people from each city in Solano County, along with representation from Board of Supervisors. So it was actually, I thought it was a really good leadership summit because obviously the topic was something close to all of us. And, every year that we go there, it seems like we learn more. And that's really my report for tonight, Mayor. So,
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Tonneson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we were all at League of Cities, or most of us up here were. And again, yeah, the topic was homelessness. They had some really good ideas. Just getting into it's amazing what we all have in common. I mean, we're all fighting the same fight in a lot of cases, and it's nice to get input from other electeds and city managers. And then I want to talk about the downtown National Night's not far away. National Night Out is not far away. We're going to have an event this year in the downtown, so be more information coming out on that, I'm assuming fairly soon. Saturday is a very busy day for most of us, for Earth Day. But there is a prescription drug give back at City Hall. That's on Saturday from, I think it starts at 10. And then Blues, Brews, and Barbecue Festival is going to be going on this weekend too. So if you want to try it out, come out and have some brew and some barbecue. That's all for me, Mayor.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everyone. So with many of my colleagues, we've attended a lot of the same events, APCA, League of Cities, of course, ending chronic homelessness being one of the star workshops. But to add to that, I also really enjoyed our City Council study session that was last Tuesday, and learned with the general plan was something that I needed to dig a little further in. And so looking forward to having tours of the city and really understanding what the general plan is today and what the community wants it to be. Also, I had one of tours, and I talk about the tours a lot because it allows me to really look at the city of Fairfield and fall deeper in love with it. So I spent time with our fire chief, and really learned more about the men and women that serve in our fire department, the equipment, the budgets, the everything. And of course, there's going to be a second tour where I'm hoping I can talk somebody into driving the fire truck myself. I don't know.
Do the tiller, do the tiller.
Maybe it'll happen. But thank you. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I'm going to keep mine pretty short. I also attended the leadership conference with my colleagues. One of the things that I think we did really well was talk with our legislators. And Senator Dodd, we talked to him, and he promised that he would work with us on something that's important to all of us, and that is homelessness. And so we're going to try to work on maybe a pilot program here. Don't know what that will be yet, but we'll all put our heads together and work with our two over here, our council members who sit on the county-wide homeless, they're working together. So we'll be doing that in the near future, so we can ask Senator Dodd to sponsor that and get it through. The reason why we brought that up is because usually it's the big cities that get to do pilot programs, and we are on the cutting edge of a lot of things here. We started our homeless intervention team. We're really ahead of many other cities, and everybody here, every department, we're all engaged in it. And so I thought, the governor, if they need something to run on, could give them a win if they came and allowed a city of our size, which is not small. We're a medium-sized city. We're not San Francisco or San Diego, and those folks are so in deep that I'll just say I think we could do it better. So I thought that was great. The other thing, while we're sitting and while I'm talking about homelessness, I wanted to bring up that we are soon going to be having our tiny home project called pallet shelters. I don't like to call them that, but they will be open and ready for about 16 homeless people. And also very soon, within the next month or so, we will be cutting ribbon on a low-income housing area here that's built already. And there are some places there for people who are homeless or on the edge of homelessness. And so we are really moving along here. And this, like I said, I don't know how many times that I'm going to keep saying it, this is the Get It Done team. This is a great city council with a lot of energy, and we're doing things. So that's all I have, and Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I am happy to report some of you on council and in the public. I know we've gotten questions, but you might remember a couple weeks ago, or maybe about 3 weeks ago now, at the last listening tour, there was questions that came up about Manuel Campos Parkway. And so things are progressing as pretty good. So this week now, from Mystic Drive to Claybank, traffic has now been diverted over to the westbound new lanes that have been built there, and that will provide for some opportunity. There's still going to be the delineators out there for some time, reducing on eastbound traffic just to the one lane as they finish some of the construction punch list items. Those items include finishing some of the landscaping work, doing some repairs to damage that has occurred on the pavement and curbs. And then getting the streetlights energized. So that project from Mystic to Claybank is on track or back on track, and then in the next couple of months, the work is underway right now to start planning for the next segment that will continue down. Eventually, that'll go all the way down to Portland Drive, and then we're working with the developer who's also looking at adding the second northbound lanes on Claybank, and they're trying to work with our staff to figure out what the timing of that looks like, so that you got two major roadway segments all at the same spot, and whether or not we can have those impacts at the same time or stagger those projects so that the impacts to residents in that area aren't as severe but may take a little bit longer to complete. So, but traffic is on the westbound lanes now, and so that is my report.
And Mr. City Attorney, any report?
I have nothing to report out of closed session tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Madam City Clerk.
Yes, thank you. A few things. We have several openings on commissions. There's one opening on the Solano Commission for Women and Girls for one open seat from someone from Fairfield. We also have 2 seats available on the Planning Commission, and we're still accepting applications until May 26th. Landscape Oversight Committee, 7 seats are available. The deadline isn't until Friday, June 9th, and we'll be putting information out on our social media and website, etc. And then Youth Commission, 5 seats are available on the Youth Commission for a term of from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st of 24, and that is for ages 13 through 21. And then next, I'm going to be reading a proclamation about National Volunteer Appreciation Week, but I wanted to also just thank our many City of Fairfield volunteers who give of their time. We have a lot of volunteers with our Adopt a Street, Adopt a Park, and Adopt a Creek programs. We also have about 50 or 60 volunteers at the 2 golf courses, about 25 to 30 at each, and they volunteer as players, assistants, or marshals, and they enjoy that because they get to play free golf. Last month, in March, 54 golf volunteers actually completed just under 1,300 hours of volunteer service, which equates to about 24 hours per month per person. Also wanted to mention our water treatment volunteers. They must complete a T2 certificate before volunteering, which is a state exam for drinking water treatment, and they gain valuable hands-on experience. Every 4 months, there's a shift change, and volunteers work for a 4-month shift for about 4 hours per week. They're assigned an employee operator to teach them the ropes, and it's a very successful program. I usually have a waiting list. And then, last but not least, we have about 30 volunteers in Rockville Hills Regional Park, if anyone likes to be outside. The 3rd Saturday of every month from 9 to 12, they meet in the parking lot on Rockville Road and help with trail crew, and I guess they get free pizza afterwards. That's another popular volunteer spot. And then Parks and Rec, they depend very heavily on volunteers for all of their special events. So some of the events that are coming up are our July 4th parade. It's on a Tuesday this year. And then our Tomato and Vine Festival is back, and it's going to be back in August again. Last year it was held in September, and that's August 19th through the 20th. And we usually need a lot of help with setup also on August 18th. So just some things to keep in mind. You can contact me for more information. Thank you. And then are we on to presentation 1? Okay.
Yeah.
Proclamation declaring National Volunteer Appreciation Week, presented by City Clerk Karen Reese. And I'm going to present this to the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano Counties, Kathy Abraham, who is the volunteer and office coordinator for the Food Bank's Fairfield warehouse. National Volunteer Appreciation Week, April 16th through the 20th, 2023. Whereas the 3rd week of April has been designated as National Volunteer Appreciation Week to recognize the hard work, dedication, and passion of volunteers and national service members throughout our nation, and whereas last year more than 64 million Americans gave their time in service to our nation, which is a testament to the compassion and generosity of the American spirit. And whereas studies prove that volunteering builds stronger community, promotes ethnic and cultural harmony, builds valuable skills, and provides better job prospects. And whereas volunteering also enhances individual health and well-being by increased socialization and reduced loneliness, provides a sense of purpose, helps people stay physically and mentally active, and whereas the City of Fairfield is committed to encouraging volunteerism and national service among its employees, citizens, partners, businesses, and organizations, and we thank all volunteers for their dedicated service. And whereas just in the past 10 years alone, hundreds of dedicated City of Fairfield volunteers completed more than 300,000 volunteer hours assisting in every department during special events and helping with special projects. Our volunteers are invaluable and deeply appreciated. Now, therefore, I, Catherine Catmoy, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, California, do hereby proclaim April 16th through the 22nd, 2023, as National Volunteer Appreciation Week in the City of Fairfield, and we honor the many accomplished volunteers who graciously give their time in the community. And I wanted to present it to Kathy from the Solano Food Bank because they're one of our best community partners, and they always need volunteers. And you can volunteer on Saturdays even, or as a family. I volunteer with my Seroptimus group. I've done it with my family. You can do it as an individual. If you have a traffic ticket and you need to do community service, they take those hours. The city does not. So anyway, I'd like her to say a few words. Thank you.
Mayor and City Council, I'm here today as a volunteer coordinator with the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano, and I would like to thank the City of Fairfield for this recognition during Volunteer Appreciation Week. Although I am now the volunteer coordinator, I started with the Food Bank as a volunteer, and that has helped me to fully understand the value that volunteers bring in support of the missions of nonprofit organizations. Our food bank is currently serving over 350,000 people each month. Approximately half of those are in Solano County. This is more than double the amount of people we served before the pandemic, and we are seeing the greatest growth in need with the elderly and the children. There are many reasons for this growth. However, the biggest is the effect of inflation on people's already stretched budgets. Grocery bills are rising at the same time that emergency food benefits that were put in place during the pandemic are ending. A loss of $7 million in benefits for the residents of both Contra Costa and Solano counties, and we are anticipating an even greater need for our programs going forward. We only succeed as a food bank with the dedicated support of our volunteers. They contribute over 2,000 hours each month sorting, packing, and distributing food in our communities. Their dedication to our neighbors is very inspiring, and they continue to step up to the growing need. In closing, I'd like to say that we have over 60 community food distributions each week, so we encourage you to visit our website, sign up to volunteer. I will leave these in the back, either to volunteer, host a food drive, or if you're so inclined to donate. We serve our community 7 days a week, so there's always an opportunity for you to volunteer 7 days a week and also into the evenings for families. Once again, we want to thank the City of Fairfield for this recognition.
Thank you.
Thank you. You'll put that in the back?
Oh, we've got you busy tonight, Madam Clerk. So now we're going to turn to public comments.
Yes, persons wishing to address the City Council on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. The council cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting, but council members may briefly respond to statements made or questions raised by the public, ask for clarification from staff, refer the matter to staff, Request staff to report back to the council at a subsequent meeting or place the matter on a future agenda. To speak on an agenda item, if you're online, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes per item. And I do have speaker cards up here. Thank you. And our first speaker is Jeff Traeger.
Hey, Jeffrey.
City Council. What's going on at the downtown theater? Excuse me. We have on April 23rd, we have the Farnsworth Dance Academy presentation of Shine. And on 6th, we have the world famous children's choir, Voena. And on this 19th of May, we have the Missouri Street Theater, SpongeBob, the musical. And then on the 27th, Christine Gambito, one of the really funny Filipino comics in this country, and we're selling tickets like crazy. So get your tickets by going to downtowntheater.com. And lastly, I'd like to thank the city again for extending our Friday night music series, starting off with the Time Bandits down on the city lawn. And then we're going to go out to some of the parks, including Wood Creek, Ridgeview, Dover, and Laurel Creek with music. So thank you again, and we really appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Jeff.
Our next speaker is Supeef Purewal. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Suk. I use she, her pronouns. I am a Fairfield resident and specifically been a resident of Green Valley for 20 plus years. Also went to the public schools here, dealing with allergies. Sorry about the sniffling and stuff. I'm also a parent and raising my 3-year-old daughter here in the same place I was raised, which is really special. Outside of living here, I'm a public health researcher. So I work with community organizers and on their social justice campaigns related to things like housing and economic security. So I'm here for you to put a face to a name. I've emailed you about the Wiseman development that's happening in Green Valley, the apartments. I am working with my community, and we've had about 1,400 people sign a letter of support, and also got something published in the Daily Republic. We want to ensure that our opposition to this project is known and also stays on top of mind even during any stalls and slow periods from the developer. I can only begin to name the consequences of this project moving forward, and I know a lot of people have emailed you about it as well. And some of those, I'll just briefly say, are pollution and air quality from the traffic. There are a lot of developments happening, so all these projects need to be thought about comprehensively as opposed to individually. Pedestrian safety, public safety of the children in the schools, including my daughter, who is going to be playing in the playground during construction. The crowding happening in the schools, the resulting large classroom sizes, the lack of basic needs infrastructure like healthcare and grocery stores, which are much more necessary. I'm glad that you're all thinking about houselessness as something to work on in our community, but luxury apartments are probably not the best way to go. We have asked to meet with our council person, and we look forward to doing that, and I heard you say that that's important to you, so we're excited to meet you to talk about our needs and our vision for our community. And the last thing I'll say is that the pastor mentioned early on at the opening, doing what's good for the people, and we believe that listening to the community and for us to think about what our community will look like as a result of these projects is something we have expertise in because we live our daily lives there. So we hope that you take that into account, and you'll be hearing more from us.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is John Takeuchi.
Good evening, everybody. I was at your study session last week, and when the open space topic came up there, I thought I would hear something about the new open space element of the general plan. But anyway, it brought to mind some things that I think you should know as you're preparing that particular element. I was a member of the Vision 2020 thing about 25 years ago, whatever it was, that produced the current general plan. And we also created the first open space element of any general plan in the state. And they got a dozen of us together, and they said, go. I think Kat remembers this. The city sent out a survey. What are the 5 most, pressing issues? And open space preservation was one of them. And so they stuck us with the responsibility of creating this element. And we had no idea, what is open space? Well, so we had to do a lot of the defining ourselves. And we met for over 2 years, believe it or not. Everybody else was done. The general plan was drafted up, and here we were still, slugging away. But we had to define it first. Open space, in our minds, is 2 things. It could be physical open space, that's open hillsides, prairie, whatever, swamp even, or visual open space. And that could be a lot of things. It could be farms, there's production going on there, but it's basically open land. You could have woods, the shield development beyond them. That's visual open space. Travis Air Force Base is visual open space because you can't build anything around it. See, so these are the things, we started out that, and then it became actually fairly easy. Then it was just a matter of putting together ideas, of how to define the rest of it. 2 principles came out of this. One of them was that when development occurred, first of all, we were accused of being no growth. No way. We know that the town has to grow, but we want it to grow within the basin that we're very lucky to have. Okay, and that was principle number 1. Principle number 2 was that when development does occur, urban development we're talking about, and if you remember, Prop A was still in effect then, so urban development had to be contiguous to an existing city limit. Okay, so we said, all right, if development's going to occur outside of that, they've got to give us open space in return. That's got to be part of the deal, or no deal. Rancho Solano actually occurred before, we did our thing, but when Smith Ranch was basically divided in half for the subdivision or the development.
John, you have about 15 seconds.
Okay. Anyway, can I go another minute, please?
How many more do we have tonight, Madam Clerk?
No more public comment, just 2 that would like to speak on item 7.
Item 7?
Later.
Okay, yes.
Okay, anyway, that was the key principle. So anyway, how have we done? The good and bad. Some of the successes were mainly because of the land trust acquiring, actual physical properties and conservation easements. Okay, but as far as the rest of it, it's been kind of a mixed bag. The city created CFDs, the Open Space and Park CFD, and that took the place of trading physical open space, and that was a bummer. That should never have happened. When development occurs outside the city, there needs to be a dedication of some open space. Okay, that's the value to the city. What we don't want to do is become another San Francisco or LA, or Daly City was the name that we threw out. So anyway, okay, I look forward to seeing the open space element or whatever it's going to be called whenever it occurs. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did anyone else wish to make a public comment? Okay, and I don't have any hands raised online.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead to the consent calendar then, please.
Sure. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the City Council or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item.
All right. Do we have any public speakers on this?
No, just new business.
All right, then I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Vaccaro. Second. Second by Councilman Doug. All in favor? Aye. Approved unanimously. All right, we're going to move on to new business.
Item 7.
Councilman Doug.
Resolutions 2023 2023-62 through 2023-70 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield, initiating proceedings for the formation of the City of Fairfield Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance Districts numbers 2023-1 Gateway, 2023-3 Waterman Highlands, 2023-5 Rancho Solano, 2023-6 Pepper Tree, 2023-7 Rolling Hills, 2023-8 Colib Estates, 2023-11 Paradise Valley, 2023-12 Downtown Business District, and 2023-13 North Cordelia, and the levy and collection of assessments within the districts for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 pursuant to the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972, Part 2 of Division 15 of the California Streets and Highway Codes, and Article 8D of the California Constitution describing the improvements to serve the district and ordering the preparation of an engineer's report, and Resolution 2023-71 through 2023-79 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield providing preliminary approval of the engineer's reports for the proposed formation of the City of Fairfield Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance Districts, number 2023-1 Gateway, 2023-3 Waterman Highlands, 2023-5 Rancho Solano, 2023-6 Pepper Tree, 2023-7 Rolling Hills, 2023-8 Colib Estates, 2023-11 Paradise Valley, 2023-12 Downtown Business District, and 2023-13 North Cordelia, and the levy and collection of assessments within the districts for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 pursuant to the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972, Part 2 of Division 15 of the California Streets and Highway Codes, and Article, I think that is 13.
13.
Okay. I had my X's and my V's mixed up. 13D of the California Constitution, and Resolutions 2023-80 through 2023-88 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield declaring its intention to order the formation of assessment districts, the City of Fairfield Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance Districts, numbers 2023-1 Gateway, 2023-3 Waterman Highlands, 2023-5 Rancho Solano, 2023-6 Pepper Tree, 2023-7 Rolling Hills, 2023-8 Colib Estates, 2023-11 Paradise Valley, 2023-12 Downtown Business District, and 2023-13 North Cordelia, to levy and collect assessments within such districts for fiscal year 2023 to 2024, and appointing a time and place for public hearings. And our presenter is Senior Management Analyst Chris Lewis.
Thank you. Sorry about those long resolution names there. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, staff has prepared 3 resolutions for your consideration. The first resolution initiates the proceedings to form 9 new Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance Districts, or LLMDs. The second resolution provides preliminary approval for the engineer's reports required for these proposed districts. And the third resolution declares council intent to form the new LLMDs and sets the public hearing for June 6th. For the benefit of those watching and those who may not have had an opportunity to join this process in the early stages, LLMDs are special financing districts formed and administered in accordance with the 1972 Landscaping and Lighting Act and Proposition 218, Article 13D of the California Constitution, which was adopted by voters in 1996. The districts may fund landscaping, lighting, and other improvements in a defined geographic area. On the screen is a map of all the existing LLMD boundaries. Between 1984 and 2010, the city formed 19 LLMDs, but currently only has 16 active districts today. And those 16 districts generate approximately $4 million in annual revenue for landscaping services, but that funding is funneled right back into those originating communities to fund those approved services. Between 2021 and 2022, staff conducted an in-depth review of the existing 16 districts and identified 9 LLMDs that would have a funding shortfall within the next 1 to 3 fiscal years if the city continued providing services at the existing levels. So in order to preserve those services in the communities, staff initiated a community engagement process and a Proposition 218 balloting procedure to increase assessments and form new districts to replace the existing districts. And during this time, council also authorized nearly $1 million in loans to 7 of the 9 districts to minimize the disruption of services to those districts while staff carried out this process through fiscal year 22-23. As mentioned, these districts are subject to Proposition 218, and Prop 218 changed certain aspects of how local governments are able to raise assessment revenue. Some key elements of Prop 218 are that government-owned parcels are no longer exempt, except in some rare cases. Property owner approval is required for any increase to the established maximum assessment rate in any district. Assessment rates must be calculated based on the proportion of special benefit each parcel actually receives from the improvements and services. And lastly, governments must support that calculation in an engineer's report. Now, the engineer's report is the guiding document for these districts and arguably one of the most important elements of this entire process because it identifies the general location and types of services the district is going to be providing, how and why those services and improvements provide a special benefit to each property owner, also known as special benefits, how and why those services and improvements benefit the public at large, also known as the general benefit. And then the report then quantifies both the special and general benefits in terms of a proportion of the total services being provided by the district, and that's where we get the phrase special versus general benefit from. This is very important because that is how we know how much of the budget each entity is responsible for. So the engineer's report also gives an outline of the estimated costs of services in the district. Next, the report describes the methodology used to allocate the special benefit costs among the assessable parcels in the district, essentially establishing a maximum assessment rate at the time of formation. And finally, at the end of the report, we have a parcel listing with all the parcels, assessable parcels, well, all the parcels, and their associated levy for the fiscal year. Now, Prop 218 requires that this report is approved at the time the district is formed, and that a new report is prepared each year during the annual levy proceedings and adopted by council. So as this report is extremely technical in nature, the city hired consultants NBS who specialize in this particular field to assist the city with developing these reports for all districts, all the 9 districts. In conjunction with the development of the engineer's report, staff also hired Civic Mike, a division of NBS, to assist with community engagement efforts in each community. Initial touch points informed property owners of the funding shortfall and the proposal to form new districts. As the process evolved, we moved into disseminating information and gathering data through surveys. We handed out flyers, fact sheets. There were email notifications that went out. We had information posted on the city website. We had social media postings. We hosted in-person and virtual community meetings. We hosted pop-up communities, Q&A sessions at various locations throughout the city. And recently, we posted message boards on main roads in various districts. Civic Mike also created a website dedicated to Fairfield's LLMDs on which residents can find general information about their districts, some historical information. There was GIS mapping systems available to them, interactive. They could find their parcel assessment rate, their particular parcel assessment rate, and generally an information hub for all residents to locate info. And while staff was always available on hand for residents to contact and ask questions, Civic Mike really did serve as the primary mode of communication during this process, and residents were encouraged to sign up for notifications so they can have timely updates on all the latest news. And let me go back to that. Last and certainly not least, property owners had an opportunity to join working groups, which were an assembly of individuals from each proposed group, and they were tasked with providing input during this entire project process. They were tasked with assisting us with gathering data from their fellow community members, disseminating information to those community members, and then also encouraging other property owners to participate in this balloting process. Here's a few pictures of what that community engagement looked like. We met at local schools, we met at local coffee shops, among other places, and those are the message boards that were posted out on the main roads. So tonight, council will decide whether they will adopt the 3 resolutions to initiate the formation proceedings for these 9 districts. And if the district should be approved in June, residents in the city can expect the following impacts. New districts will replace the existing districts in their entirety. District budgets will increase by an average of 40%, and average assessment rates will increase by an average of 98%. Between the general benefit contributions and the assessments that the city will now be responsible for, the general fund impact is a little more than $1 million per year, which is subject to an annual CPI increase. For context, the general fund contributed $125,000 to these 9 districts in the current fiscal year 22-23, so that's about a 700% increase. Property owners can expect to see 2 line items on their property bill, one for the new districts and one for the existing districts. However, property owners will only be assessed in the existing districts for the amount needed to make annual loan payments. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a whole section about the loan. Finally, per the loan agreement between the city and the district that received loans, the $1 million loan that we talked about in a previous slide, those existing districts will remain active for the sole purpose of repaying the loan. So now property owners will see 2 line items, one for the new district, one for the existing district, in the amount needed only to repay the loan for that 5-year repayment period. After those loans have been paid, the city will undertake proceedings to dissolve those districts. Now, if the inverse of that outcome is true and the property owners vote against or oppose the formation of the districts, since the existing districts are still viable, we would just revert back to the existing districts and provide whatever services we can with whatever revenues, assessment revenues we have available to us in any given fiscal year. Now, for the first 5 years, residents in the districts that received loans will see a compounded effect because, of course, their annual assessment rates are already not enough to support the services or that full services that everybody's really looking for, but then they'll also be making that loan payment during that first 5 years, so they'll see a compounded effect during that 5-year period. This here is a chart of those deficits. So we have the proposed budget as it's proposed in the new engineers' reports. We have their current revenue under the existing districts. So the proposed budget represents what full services would look like. And if those districts, the new districts are not approved, the last column shows what budget deficit we'll have. We have a deficit as low as 30% in Rancho Solano and deficits as high as 90% in the downtown business district. So next steps. While we have done so much in the last year, we have quite a full calendar still ahead of us between now and August 10th. So I'm just going to go over that. We'll start at the top, go left to right. So you'll consider the adoption of the 3 resolutions tonight, and if those resolutions are approved, ballots will be mailed out by April 21st, and they are due back to the city by June 6th at the close of the public hearing. Mailed postmarks will not be considered. On May 2nd, staff will bring an item back to council to request your direction to the city manager on how the city should participate in the balloting proceedings for city-owned parcels. We'll hold a public hearing on June 6th. Again, last call for those ballots by the end of the public hearing. On June 7th, we will tabulate those ballots here in council chambers, and that will be available for public viewing. Anybody can sit and watch the process if they'd like. And it's important to note that per Prop 218, the tabulation process uses a weighting system. So that means that ballots submitted by a property owner who will be obligated to pay $200 under the new district will be weighted twice as heavy as the ballot submitted by a property owner who will only be obligated to pay $100 under the existing district. So the night of June 7th, we'll hold another council meeting back in these council chambers to announce the results of the tabulation, the ballot tabulation. And if there is no majority protest against any district, then council may consider adopting a resolution to form the new districts. Now, the subsequent June 20th and July 18th notice of intent and public hearings are entirely dependent on the actions taken on June 7th. If the new districts are approved, then the city will undertake proceedings to levy assessments under the existing districts for loan payments only, if the district had a loan. If the district did not have a loan, then we will levy no assessments under the existing district, and staff will bring proceedings to council at a later date to dissolve that district. Now, if the new districts are not approved, staff will bring the regular annual proceedings for the existing districts, because as I mentioned before, we're just going to revert back to sort of business as usual under the existing districts, and we'll levy the maximum amounts and work to provide whatever services we can. Likely will result in a service reduction, so staff will simultaneously be working with our landscape providers to reduce those contracts, amend those contracts. And finally, we will submit the tax rolls to the county by August 10th. So this concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, but we also have our consultants here. We have Sarah Mayers, Director of NBS, who helped us with these engineers reports. We also have Danielle Wood, Director of Civic Mike, who helped us with the community engagement portion. Thank you.
Colleagues, would you like to let the public speak first and then we'll take questions? Is that all right? Sure.
So the public hearing is on the June 6th council meeting?
Correct.
And then there's another meeting on the 7th, right after?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
We have quite a few. I mean, we anticipate several thousand ballots, and so we wanted to make sure we took the whole day to be able to count those, yes.
All right. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
Yes, I have 3 cards. Gina Schneider, and she'll be followed by Bernadette Curry.
Hi, Gina. You have 3 minutes, and if you want to request another minute, it's good. Okay?
Good evening. My name is Gina Schneider. I am actually the daughter of Pat Civigliano, who came at last month. But my mom, Pat, had to go out of state to attend a funeral unexpectedly. So she asked me to read her following statement. I stand before you again to speak on the same issue I spoke on at the last council meeting. I won't rehash everything that I said at that time because you all heard what I had to say. I will just refresh your memory. The city is proposing a new Waterman Highlands Landscape District. Under the proposal, my 2 parcel assessments would go from $195 a year each to $6,707.15 for one and $5,081 for the other per year. Totally astronomical, unacceptable, unfair, and totally not within our capacity to pay that amount on a continuing basis, as my husband and I are both elderly, retired folks on a limited income. I believe at the request of Doug Carr, the city decided to reevaluate our particular parcels, and I was informed last Tuesday by city staff that the assessment would be reduced to somewhere in the $3,000 and $1,000 ranges, but not exactly what I had in mind. I still request that our 2 parcels be excluded from the proposed new district. About a third of our property line borders on federal property. We are not in the line sight of Waterman homes nor the landscaping. Our houses were built almost 10 years after the Waterman Highlands development and were not part of the development but built specifically for us. I'm here not only for myself but also for the residents of Waterman Highlands. We have walked the entire district house by house. This is what we found. We estimate 95% of the people we talked to knew nothing about this proposal and were grateful for us for informing them. 99% of them were shocked and dismayed by the amount and the percentage of the increase in their particular parcel. We found that most people are quite unhappy, to put it mildly, with the city regarding the history of the landscaping and the current proposal of this new district. Everyone we talked to did not like the new methodology and did not think it is fair. I brought with me tonight a petition also signed by some Waterman Highland residents requesting that the proposal be rescinded and replaced with something more reasonable and equitable. And I have the signatures. I'm not sure if I can leave that or...
You may. You can bring it up here. Thank you.
Bernadette Curry, to be followed by Carol Hummel.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. A little awkward to be standing here before you. Born in Fairfield, raised by the man who actually oversaw the construction of this building, and so it kind of pains me to be here tonight speaking in opposition to the methodology of Waterman Highlands. I'm not speaking about the rest of the landscape and lighting districts. I've lived at my property for nearly 20 years, it'll be 20 years this August, and have paid $195 per year willingly, acknowledging the need that this needs to go up. So I want to thank staff for listening to us. There was an adjustment made to the methodology. We were proposed to be assessed at $5,200. We're now down to $3,800. We are on the backside of Gina's parents' property adjacent to Waterman Ranch. The issue about Waterman Highlands is a unique district. There are 4 parcels that were the remnants of the original Waterman Ranch. It was the founder of Fairfield. This was his property. 10 Gate was the 10 gates leading up to his house. The last 4 parcels, as they were subdivided, the rest of the development went in. The last 4 were constrained both by the hill, Waterman Ranch, the creek behind it, as Gina pointed out, the SAD canal, SIDS canal behind us. We cannot build on our property above the height dictated by the city. We cannot build on the lower part because there's an earthquake fault going through. As this methodology for this particular landscape and lighting district, the lot size does not make sense. I appreciate that staff did do some corrections based on some of the other assessments, but for this one, as Chris had pointed out, the average assessment was supposed to be increasing by 98%. This district goes from 195 for the low end, they're going to be paying 460-ish up to about 700. And then the 4 parcels that are the largest are going to be paying roughly 10%, about $13,000 total. So I have a problem with the methodology. I do agree that it needs to be raised, but the way that there's some current legal issues associated with the way that the report comes through. Your general benefit is not properly apportioned. The methodology of how it is, how it's been calculated, and I raised this before, on Waterman itself does not have the proper lineage of the feet along the way that it's apportioned. It's only apportioned 18.3% for general benefit, meaning that the 255 residents in the LMD are then to shoulder 82% of the landscaping cost of the main entrance to the west side of Fairfield. Those of you who have driven there, those of you who have lived on that side, know that as you come through the intersection of Waterman and Hilborn, it is the major thoroughfare. There's actually advertisement going on that particular corner. And yet, the cost associated with the general benefit is only 18%. The Safeway property itself is not included in the assessment. It's not, even though as you come out of that driveway, you're looking right at that landscaping. The Point is not included. West America Bank next to it is not included. You took the original boundary of the existing landscaping district, even though, as staff said, this is a new district. Looking at a new district, it should be everybody who's benefiting from that particular area. I do not want to oppose this, but as Gina says, 4 parcels are disproportionately paying for it. If you go forward with the balloting, you're going to have 4 people already in opposition. That's $10,000 that's going to go to the total cost of the opposition. So I ask you not to go forward with this methodology for this particular landscaping lighting district. Send it back to staff, have them relook at the boundaries, look at who actually benefits from that landscaping there at that corner. The majority of the landscaping is on that corner. As you know it, coming down Hilborn, turning right onto Waterman, that big ivy area. I know you all put your signs out there. I've seen them. I drive by them every time. That's used more for the front door to the west side of Fairfield. It is not these 255 homes that should be bearing the sole cost for that. So with that, I'm available for any questions. I thank you for your time. I ask you to delay just this one. Go forward with the rest of them, and you'll have our support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Carol Hummel.
Good evening. I live in Rolling Hills, as most of you, I think almost everyone there knows me. I'm on the working group for the Landscape Management District, and we have been working with Civic Mike with Public Works since August, and as all the answers started coming in, our group really read everything that came out from the engineer's report to the prior budgets to the proposed new budget. And there's a few of us that went every line item, which nobody wants to see because it's huge. But I can tell you that most of our group who has gone through that effort thinks that the plan works for Rolling Hills. And we think that the, Civic Mike has been transparent, NDS has been transparent, and Public Works has been transparent. In fact, what we are really asking for, and everyone has supported us, even our city manager, is we want to get the awareness out. As the first speaker said, we find less than 10% of our residents are, know what this is. So once the electronic signs went out last week, I didn't even know people who knew who I was or where I lived, but they're stopping me on the street. They're asking people for my contact information. I'm getting phone calls from people I don't know. What is that? Tell me what it is. And we have a team of people going door to door, and that's over 1,000 homes, to make people aware, because we want this to pass. And in Rolling Hills, it's the only one of the 9 groups that did not have an inflation adjuster. So it's been pretty much set at $250 or $300 a year since 1988. One of my neighbors said, quit saying 1988. Tell them that's when Bill Clinton was the president, so they'll figure it out. If you look up the actual inflation since 1988, it's 246%. So my $250 should be $615 right now. And the thing to understand is that some of the components of landscape management costs have actually increased higher than the average inflation rate. And that includes fuel, gasoline, and of course the labor cost of the workers. So my assessment is going till 732. I said inflation would have got me to 615. That's $90 a year. And for the amount of greenery and, landscape, property that everyone shares in our neighborhood, that's $90 a year. I'm for it. And when we explain this to the people, they're by and large telling us they're for it. And we must pass this, because if we do not, we will spend $67,000 starting July 1 to June 30th. $67,000. I mean, that's a guy with a watering can. That's my joke, because it won't even, the water bill, should be $200,000 and it will be $100. So what,
Madam Clerk, could you give her another minute, please?
Okay, I'm almost done. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for your support and getting people to help us get the word out. But we are going door to door, and we do want people to know we don't want to have this vote in 12 months again if it fails. So, I would recommend to everyone in Fairfield, and if you can put it anywhere on your website, the frequently asked questions at Civic Mike, which are available for all 9 districts, are very easy to read and will help people understand what's going on. Because Chris had quite the mouthful of slides, and it's really too much for people to absorb immediately. But the frequently asked questions at civicmike.com will get you there. So thank you very much all, and hopefully we'll prevail on this one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Did anyone else want to speak on this matter? And I don't have any hands raised online.
All right, so I'll bring it back for discussion here. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilman Vaccaro?
Just a question regarding the Waterman Highlands. So it was adjusted, Bernadette, from what was the original number? I mean, no, but then it was raised, and then it was raised. Yeah, the second adjustment, sorry.
The second adjustment, it took it down to 3,800, 3,800.
Okay.
Bernadette, can we get you to speak into the mic?
Yeah, the original one, that's it.
The report for my property was at 5,200. As Gina said, the properties behind us, right behind the fire station on Hillborn, collectively were just over 12,000. The ranch was just under 4,000. With the change in methodology, I apologize to my neighbor at the ranch. Theirs goes up to 4,800. Ours went down to 3,800. Theirs went down to 6,000. But the overall jump for the rest of the parcels all went up significantly. Again, the average was we're all paying $195 right now. It went up collectively. As I scrolled through it, I think the lowest was $450-ish.
Sounds about
And
right,
then
yeah.
based on the lot size and the house size, I think the highest around there was about 700. So again, if it's a $90 increase, willingly. 200, willingly. It needs to be raised. I acknowledge that. These 4 parcels are disproportionate. So.
Okay.
Anybody else with a comment or?
Yeah.
Councilman Tonneson?
How many methodologies does 218 allow?
I'll have to defer to our expert, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. Again, just to reintroduce myself, Sarah Mayers with NBS. I'm a director, and we're the firm that was hired to work on these engineers' reports. Proposition 218 is not prescriptive. It gives us information telling us that we need to calculate the general benefit, separate the general benefit from the special benefit, and then allocate the proportional special benefit to property. But it doesn't tell us how to do that. It doesn't say, for this improvement, this is the methodology, this is the what you do. And so that is left to the professional engineer who is preparing the engineer's reports, and that analysis is based on the specific improvements, the location and type of the improvements, the properties that are deemed to benefit from those improvements and the services being provided, and then allocated based on the methodology that that engineer establishes. So Proposition 218 does not say how to do this at all.
Is it just numbers that you feed into you feed in somewhere and they spit out the averages, or so it takes in all the size and all the lot size, the property size, and is it the same across all of these districts? Is the methodology that you use the same?
It is mostly the same across all of the districts. You have two districts that are primarily commercial in nature, LMD1, which is the gateway area, and then LMD12. So those are slightly different because they are primarily commercial as opposed to the residential or mixed. But in general, the methodology is very similar across all of the districts. We're looking at various things to allocate that special benefit. We're looking at land use, so whether that's residential, commercial, public use, golf course in a couple of these districts, looking at all of that. We're looking at lot size, building size, and trip generation to each individual parcel, which is a function of the land use. So those are the factors that are going into the analysis for all of the districts.
And is it just for residential, or does the shopping center, or do they not come into the equation?
Oh, no, the shopping center that is LMD number 1, they have their own district and they're being assessed for those improvements.
Okay.
Are you referencing the shopping center that is across the street from the location of the LMD number 3
Yeah,
area?
is that a different LMD?
So they are across the street, and the way that we're recognizing the additional traffic that is on those streets is looking at the pass-through traffic that goes along Waterman and Hillborn. And so we recognize, again, pass-through traffic as opposed to trips being generated by property within that district. And that's how we're calculating that general benefit percentage, which is the portion of the assessment that the Waterman property owners are not paying, that the city is funding through the general fund.
So what if they all say, no, we don't want the 218? What if they opt out? Who makes up, and I don't know if this is a question for you, but who makes up the difference in the cost of maintenance?
Well, you can't opt out of an assessment, but you can, every property owner has an opportunity to cast their ballot either in favor or in opposition. And then based on the results of that ballot tabulation, if we do not have a majority protest, then this council could consider the resolution to form that district and levy the assessments.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Patrice.
My questions start with community engagement. I do see the list here of data gathering, information meetings, and I would like to know how many people are showing up to these meetings? How much engagement? Is there a possibility that there's a vote going on and people don't know? It's everybody in these districts getting the mailings. Are those mailings clear and concise? I would like to know more.
Yes, every property owner within each district did receive a flyer or postcard or whatever the mailing and communication was that was mailed out. So that does go out to every single property owner. The working groups, I have to say, not all of them were well attended. Several people at most in each working group. However, some of those working groups, those people would go back to their community, and for example, in the Rolling Hills Neighborhood Network, there would be several people who would show up to the working groups, but they would report back to the Rolling Hills Neighborhood Network. Same thing in Rancho Solano. They have their own HOA that they would go back and report to. In North Cordelia, there is a one resident, there's a resident who I've spoken to. She's gathered a lot of information from me personally, but she also has her individual HOAs that she goes back and reports to. So is it possible that some people have not seen the mailers? I think absolutely that is possible. What I've heard from Civic Mike, who this is their expertise, unfortunately, sometimes districts have to go through many iterations of this Prop 218 process, which of course we're not wanting to do. We want to avoid that. That's why we tried to put out as many mailers, notifications, social media postings, city websites, Civic Mike websites, that type of thing. But unfortunately what it seems and what we hear from our experts is that sometimes residents don't get involved until they start seeing the degradation of landscaping in their area. And they're like, hey, what's going on? And then they want to get involved, and then they want to join the working groups, or then they want to actually cast their ballots. So that's what we understand. But definitely we made a very good effort to reach out over the last 8 to 10 months.
Okay. So this Waterman district, well, let me back up a bit. So I always have my ear to the street of what is the unintended consequences. So this is what we want it to be, but we have these situations, and it makes us relook at our numbers, at our calculations. Is that what happened here at Waterman? The residents came and said, hey, this is not correct, and you all reassessed it?
Yes, and thank you for asking that question, because I'd like to make a point of clarification. So what Ms. Civigliano and Ms. Curry brought to our attention was that, as Ms. Curry mentioned, a portion of their parcel was per the Planning Commission in the 80s, which we eventually found the resolution and the final maps that go along with it, that actually places restrictions, building restrictions, on a large portion of their parcels. So just as a point of clarification, the methodology wasn't changed. What happened was NBS looked at their parcel and assigned the undevelopable parcel no benefit, basically $0 for that undevelopable portion of the parcel. So they were only charged for the portion of the parcel that they were allowed to develop on. So that was the change in the adjustment that was made in the most recent engineer's report that went out maybe a week or two ago. To the residents. So Ms. Vigliano's parcel went from, as she stated, about $11,000 or $12,000 per year between the two parcels to probably about half that.
Did that cause you to reassess, go through the whole district and reassess them all, and then these other districts as well?
Yes, not the other districts, but yes, the portion of assessments that were no longer allocated to those 3 or 4 parcels were then reallocated to the remaining 200 plus parcels in that district alone. So the average increase among the other 200 plus parcels was about, I think, $20 or $30, is that what we said? Per parcel. So we increased them from the original rate that we put out in March. We increased them another $30 per parcel because we had to spread out that remaining balance. And just while we're on the subject of District Number 13, I'd also like to make another point of clarification. The Waterman and Hillborn, the landscape on Waterman and Hillborn, actually 50% of that landscape is considered general benefit. The 18% that Ms. Curry referred to is the overall proportion of general benefit in the entire district. There's some calculations that is done in this engineer's report that I probably don't even want to start. I think Sarah would probably be the best person to explain that, but it's actually 50% of at least Waterman and Hillborn.
So, just so you know, you talk really fast.
Sorry.
And I'm a New Yorker.
I've heard that. Sorry, I'll slow down.
So I'm having a problem with my brain catching up to what you're saying. So I probably need a minute. So I'm going to come back to Waterman. I really do need to. My brain needs to catch up with you. So what happens? Let's talk a little bit more about what happens if residents can't afford this big gap, they can't afford it. Surrounding payment plans, can people lose their homes? Can you educate us about what that looks like?
Sure. As Sarah mentioned earlier, residents, if the district is approved, residents may not opt out of paying the assessments. However, with landscaping and lighting maintenance districts, there is no lien on the properties as there would be with CFDs. I know probably next to nothing about how that works. I don't know if our city attorney or maybe even Ms. Mares would like to expound a little bit on that. I don't know if there's a possibility of losing homes if there, if 10 years go by, let's say, and nobody pays that assessment. I'm not sure how that works. Do you have more to add?
The landscape and lighting assessment is an item that is levied on the property tax bill. So you have your regular ad valorem property tax, and then you have several other line items, which could be for your mosquito and vector abatement, probably your Solano irrigation district, fire, community college, what have you. So this is just one of those line items on the property tax bill. So theoretically, if there were a property owner that could not pay their overall property tax bill, whether it's a result of this increase or any other line item on that bill, then they would eventually be subject to the county foreclosure proceedings. For residential property, that is more than 5 years of delinquency on property tax bills, and then that process would start. But there is no separate foreclosure proceeding or anything of that nature specific to the landscape and lighting item on the tax bill.
So, say there is a district that does not pass. So they don't pass, and say, just so I make sure I'm following, hold on. Okay, so District 13, North Cordelia. So there's a proposed budget of $1.3 million. The current revenue is $630,000. So that's a budget deficit of 53%. So if North Cordelia does not pass, so then we only have $6,300 to do what we can to keep the landscape up for that year.
Yeah, yes, that's correct, yes. And that would include all of our administrative costs for street lighting. The county does charge the city to actually place those assessments on the tax roll, do the collection, and transfer those funds over to the city. So all of that would be included, or have to be paid with that $630,000.
Okay, so there's a budget deficit. Does that mean that this landscaping goes out to bid to see if we can get it cheaper to get more done with that less amount of money?
Yes, we certainly would put this contract out to bid, and we would let contractors know, or however we would strategically approach that. But we would definitely put it out to bid, see what types of services we can receive for the amount of revenue we have available to us. I do believe that there will be some sort of reduction, some sort of significant reduction.
So say I'm just using 13 as an example.
Sure.
Say it does not pass, and there is where the area just does not look as good anymore. We see it just. We can tell there's a difference in the way it looks. At what point can the residents say, "Can we do a do-over? Can we vote again?" Like, when does the reset button happen? When this can go back out?
At any time, at any time. So if this fails and people, let's say in September, start to see a decline in their services, they may approach the city, and we will run some sort of community engagement process to see what type of appetite people in that district have for this, for another Proposition 218 vote. Now, this process, it did cost, for the engineer's report, the assessment balloting procedure, all the financial analysis and all of that, that was about $50,000 per district, and the community engagement portion was another $25,000 per district. At least the technical portion can't be done in-house. We don't have that technical expertise on staff. So to answer your question, it can be done in any given year, every year if they'd like. It is a very expensive process, though.
I'm almost finished, I promise.
Take your time, Councilwoman.
I think what I'm trying to do is make sure people that are concerned about this, worried about this, so I'm just trying to unwind my brain in this mic so that anyone that is listening can have their questions answered. I do think I do have one final question. So with the 60, so say again, in North Cadelia doesn't pass. That's number 13. It doesn't have pass. We have this $630,000. Is there a priority? Would like maybe brush fire safety, that type of thing, be higher priority than beautification?
Absolutely. Yes, we would definitely prioritize all safety aspects, including walkway clearances, tree height clearances, weed abatement to make sure that we have some fire safety in the district. And there would have to be a strategic discussion between our staff and the landscapers, because it's not a one-to-one ratio. And what I mean by that is if we cut the budget by 50%, that doesn't necessarily mean we cut mowing from 4 times a month to 2 times a month. It doesn't equate that way, because that's not how the landscapers, that's not the cost to the actual landscapers. If you mow less frequently, there's going to be more refuse at the end, and they got to dispose of all of that, and it's more wear and tear on their equipment, that type of thing. So a 50% in the budget reduction may mean you go from mowing 4 times a month to only mowing once a month, just as an example. Obviously, irrigation costs, we'd have to figure out what that looks like, because we wouldn't want to irrigate too much, have everything grow, and then we don't have any maintenance. We can't cut the plants and the shrubs and things. So it would have to be a very strategic discussion and figure out what exact reductions we would have to make. But of course, safety would always be our first priority. And then from there, we would speak to our community and the landscape committee once it's formed to figure out where we should spend the money or how we should spend the money from there.
I do have one more question.
Absolutely.
Can we loop back to Waterman?
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have the numbers right for
Do we-
Waterman? For those Waterman parcels, are those numbers correct?
They're correct, yes. Yes. And if you mean, well, it's all correct, but if you mean assessments, budget, it's all correct, yes.
Okay.
Is that it, Councilwoman? Okay. You did great. It was fine. Anybody else?
Mayor, I do see one hand is raised online as well.
Okay, let's go ahead and take that.
Valeria or Jake, could you bring the one person whose hand is raised online, please?
Yes, we have John Diamond. You
John.
have 3 minutes.
John, thank you.
Oh, I did
Thank
too.
you.
It's, right. Okay, yeah. It's
Can you hear
okay.
me?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, I am a resident of the Waterman District. I was looking over the numbers, and while I fully believe that everybody needs to pay their part, and more than willing in my situation to go from the 195 a year to the roughly 570 a year, I think that's absolutely appropriate for my participation in my area and my city and paying for the beautification of everything. I would also like to advocate for the parcels that are being, I believe, unjustly or unproportionately assessed additional fees in the Waterman District 3 that I think it really needs to be assessed to. I don't know what they previously paid in their assessment to what they're currently expected to pay. As a landowner, if my affordability, based on Prop 13, I know what my taxes should be each year. But if I go from an estimated tax of, say, $10,000 to $16,000 in a single year, that's a huge levy and a huge assessment that I think is unproportional for expectation for, adding back to what is needed for the property. I think that it needs to be assessed more adequately across the other properties in the district to make sure that it's not a huge burden on such a few members. Understanding that they have much larger portions and they should pay proportional, but I think in what they were paying before to what they're paying now is just such a dramatic increase, I think is an overabundant burden of an expectation. Thank you.
Thank you.
There.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So I think this was answered the last time, but in a different way, but has it, when it was changed for these parcels, was it calculated at all? I know that it would have to spread out to other homes in that district, correct?
Yes.
Was that figured into, like, how much would it cost on an average? Say if it was down to $1,000 or something for each.
Oh, you mean if the budget was allocated equally among all the
Right.
parcels?
Yeah, how much, yeah,
I don't
probably,
have
you
that
probably don't have the
information.
number, but I was just wondering if you do.
Yeah, I don't have that information. Sorry, do you have that? Sorry. Just to clarify your question, are you asking what the budget would be divided by the total number of parcels that are paying in?
Right.
That's not something we looked at because that's not in line with the assessment methodology and the proportionality requirements of Proposition
I
218.
figured, okay.
Anything else, colleagues? All right. Go ahead.
Well, my
Councilman
question
Carr.
was asked and answered by Kate Patrice on that property we were discussing, the land availability and the 25% grade and how that wasn't calculated, but then it was calculated because we did take another look at it from that extreme 11,000 down to 6.
Yes.
So I just wanted to comment that I did understand that, and that was, thank you.
Councilwoman Pandora, do you have anything?
No, I think Councilmember Williams asked a lot of really great questions. Just a concern with the disproportionate amount of fees being paid by these individuals. Yeah, so I share the same concerns as my colleagues.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, I have a question. Can we take all of these resolutions in one vote?
Oh, funny you should mention that. You are free to take these votes however you see fit. So what you have before you tonight are 27 separate resolutions.
Right.
And each one is a separate resolution, so you can peel out whichever one you want. You can approve them all, you can reject them all, you can approve one and reject 26 of them. If it helps, what I've provided is I created a spreadsheet based on the agenda report and the resolution attachments that gives you the attachment number of the resolution and the LLMD district number along with a description. Okay. And I can hand it out to council and put some on the back so that the public has a copy as well. Basically, my recommendation on approval of these resolutions is that you take them in 3 parts.
Okay.
Because you have the initiating resolutions to initiate proceedings for this
Okay.
process, and those are attachments 2 through 10 and resolutions 2023-62 through 70. The second set are the preliminary approval of the engineer's report, which are attachments 11 through 19 on your agenda packet, and resolutions 2023-71 through 79. And then the final set of resolutions are the resolutions of intention, and those are attachments 20 through 28, resolutions 2023-80 through 88. So I would recommend that you take each resolution, each of the 3 categories as separate resolutions, but you would only need to then discuss 3 unless you want to carve out a specific district for separate consideration, and that you could definitely do.
Okay.
So I will pass down the line a copy of this spreadsheet, and I will go put copies on the back dais or back table for the public.
There you go. Yes, Councilwoman?
Mayor, what if one of the districts we want it to be looked at a little deeper, how does that impact the whole timeline of this going out to vote?
Mr. City Manager, did you hear that question?
It'll be next year. You'll miss the window this year.
And can you tell us what that means again, please?
I would defer to Chris on that. But
Okay.
Sure. So as mentioned, the tax rolls are due to the county by August 10th. These proceedings do require a notice of intent a ballot procedure needs to be mailed, a ballot which needs to be mailed to the property owners, a 45-day balloting period, and then the public hearing. So if we delay this even a couple weeks, let's say, and I posted the timeline again so we can kind of take a look at it. We're already creating a special meeting so that way we can tabulate those ballots. We would likely have to probably create another special meeting, or two probably special meetings, to hold both the notice of intent and then also the public hearing, because we need to leave June 20th and July 18th open for the existing districts. If the new districts aren't approved, we need to do something with the existing districts, and we need that notice of intent and public hearing for the existing districts as well. So it's a little bit of a tight timeline, but I think Mr. City Manager had it correct when it would likely be, the balloting process at least, would likely be pushed to the following fiscal year.
Okay. What is your pleasure, council? What is your displeasure?
So, obviously, I'm concerned about Waterman. We have folks that came out here today to talk about it. We have somebody that didn't seem like he was planning to speak. We heard on video. I know you said that. I just have pause about it, and I think I have pause because they raised their hands and had their situation reassessed, and it went down, and that gives me pause, and I don't know what to do with it.
Council, if we decided to pull Waterman to take a little more time, are you willing to do 2 more special meetings to get it done this year?
When would it have to be done by?
What would interfere?
If we pull Waterman, so it could be reassessed. Yeah.
So,
Could we get it done in time with 2 special meetings, like she said? If we added 2.
I'm sorry.
Could we get it done with 2 special meetings if we pulled Waterman tonight?
I think that perhaps we could maybe come back on May 2nd. 45 days later would be the July 18th. Well, I'm sorry, I don't have a calendar in front of me. I'm having a hard
Right.
time catching my bearings.
Excuse me. All right. Could you please not speak out? Thank you.
So I think the difficulty for us trying to decide this on the fly is understanding, what type of methodological options there are. And so I'm sort of looking to our consultant, because if I understand what you're asking is if we went back to the drawing board in the methodology of how the engineer's report is drafted. I mean, to me, I don't know what level of work, and maybe Sarah can speak to that, but there's unknowns there, and giving you a specific answer on the fly is difficult for us.
So let me ask a question. So
Yes.
good. How many of these parcels exist? How many? Because I know there's some in Rancho that are big parcels, and they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled their cost. If we don't go through everything again and figure out a fix, because you've in the past you've had to have run up against this before, I'm guessing, that you have these bigger landowners, but there only seems to be a small handful of them. Is there any workaround that you can think of that where we wouldn't have to stop the process, but we could evenly disperse, because it's one trip, one family, and I know that doesn't fall into your methodology, but is there anything some kind of workaround where you can, reduce it without, and still follow whatever the rules are?
So we actually did look at the trips per parcel based on the land use. That's part of the calculation, and that's why we look at a variety of factors. We're looking not only at land use, but at building square footage, lot square footage, and the trip information. So we're looking at all of those things in combination so that, we can compare all of the property in the district to each other.
But then it comes down to, so all of the items that you just mentioned, throws it all out and it comes down to lot size. So it's the lot size methodology that is making this absorbent increase. Is there any way to buffer that so that more of the whole take, some of the burden?
The way that we're looking at lot size is to calculate look at the lot size for each individual parcel as compared to the lot size on average for the entire district. So it's not a one-to-one ratio in terms of you have, 5 times as many, lot square feet, and therefore your assessment is 5 times higher. We're looking at all of those things in combination to come up with the methodology.
But that's where it sounds like there's some wiggle room. I mean, I get you. You guys are plugging in what you're plugging in, but there are 5, 6, 7 very vocal people that are getting quadruple the fees of others. Is there anything that you can think of that you can work around on that? Because you keep coming back to land size, and it's the land sizes that are getting these higher amounts.
There are 4 parcels in that district that are larger in size than the majority of the other parcels. One of those parcels also happens to have 2 units on it, and in terms of the building square footage, they are also higher building square footage. So it's not, lot size does play a factor, but it is not just lot size that is influencing that calculation.
I get all that, but
This
the
methodology
differential is too big. I mean, it's if they don't pass 218, they don't pass 218. But I just wanted to put it out there. If there's some kind of a workaround, I'd like to see that, but not start the whole project over where we have to go beat this horse again.
And unfortunately, that's, I think, where we're at. This methodology is essentially the same methodology as I explained before that is used across all of the districts. And so then to go back and, try to look at whether there is a different methodology that might be appropriate here for this particular district would be essentially starting over. And starting from the resolutions that you would be considering this evening in terms of the procedural aspect, that would all be a start over as well, including that 45-day ballot proceeding.
Do you have a rough estimate on what the engineering's report? I know that you said it's roughly $50,000 per. Do you have an overall cost we can put out to the public of what this engineering report and the work that you guys done has cost up to this point? Just ballpark.
For all of the districts?
Everything total.
And so including Civic, Mike, $720,000 in total for all of the districts, including the public engagement and the assessment engineering and the Prop 218 process.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Councilman Vaccaro.
Yeah, so it seems like the only thing we can really do is stick with this process, but then maybe, I don't know if this is even possible, but, somehow maybe the city can look at some of the disproportionate situations that exist, because I don't think any of us want to stop the process. We want it to, go ahead, David.
No, go ahead.
That was my answer. Is there anything the city can do?
Well, I
to
do
help
want
out a few of the people that are getting it's disproportionate.
I do feel compelled to raise a procedural issue which the council can consider. Under the government code, you can continue this meeting, and I'll read to you specifically the language. It's Government Code 54955.1. Any hearing being held or noticed or ordered to be held by a legislative body of a local agency at any meeting may by order or notice of continuance be continued or recontinued to any subsequent meeting of the legislative body in the same manner and to the same extent set forth in section 54955 for the adjournment of meetings, provided that if the hearing is continued to a time less than 24 hours after the time specified in the order or notice of hearing, a copy of the order or notice of continuance of hearing shall be posted immediately following the meeting at which the order or declaration of continuance was made or adopted. So in this matter, staff has told you that the ballots need to be mailed by April 21st. Today we're April 18th, which means you have 2 days. If you chose to continue this meeting, let's say to tomorrow, you could make a motion and move to continue this matter. We would need to post notice immediately, and it would give you time, because this council has asked, you know, do we have time to think about this, to consider it? You do have that option legally.
That actually wasn't my intent at all.
Okay.
No, my intent was just what I said. I think
It just passed.
to go through with the process, but maybe the city can look at some of the disproportionate situations that exist. That's all I'm asking. But I'm not saying to stop the process.
So I'm just gonna, we're trying, so if they opt out and they can get back in a year, that way if they all approve 218, then we can look at it again in a year, right? I mean, is it something that comes up all the time?
So every year.
Is it 5 years or?
No, it's just as needed, pretty much. So some of these districts have never had a Prop 218 vote. Some have gone 20 years without a Prop 218 vote. I don't think any of the Prop 218 votes we've done for any of the districts have been, oh, that's not true. There have been some that have been successful in the late 90s and early 2000s. So it's been quite some time, and it's just a matter of whether or not our assessment revenues can cover our budget.
Okay, I feel like we're beating a dead horse. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
And then if there's things we can work out down the road, but we've got to, our hands are tied. This was screwed up many, many, many years ago, and I'm sorry that you guys are paying, you know, more for this, but I'll make the motion to approve.
Councilman Tonneson, can we do that for, we're going to do it in thirds, okay? So is your motion to approve Resolution 2023-62 through 2023-70?
You're reading my mind. That was exactly my
Oh,
motion.
wow. We're getting good. Okay. Do we have a second? You second, Councilwoman Panduro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, all right. So next,
Next, I'll make the motion that we approve resolutions 2023-71 through 2023-79.
all righty. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All righty.
And I will make the last motion, resolutions 2023-80 to 2023-88.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all righty then. Now we're going to move on to public hearings. Item 8, please.
Yes, public hearing, item 8, public hearing and resolution 2023-89 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield annexing territory, Dutch Brothers Coffee, to Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation and Park Maintenance as annexation number 62, authorizing the levy of a special tax within the annexed territory and submitting the levy of a special tax to the qualified electors thereof, and Resolution 2023-90 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield declaring the results of a special annexation election in territory annexed to Community Facilities, District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, determining the validity of prior proceedings and directing recording of amended notice of special tax lien for City of Fairfield, Community Facilities, District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation and Park Maintenance, Annexation Number 62, Dutch Brothers Coffee. And our presenter again is Chris Lewis, Senior Management Analyst.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you tonight is annexation number 62 for CFD 2012-2, which funds citywide public safety services, open space operation, and park maintenance. The territory proposed for annexation is located north of Travis Boulevard and east of Oliver Road, and once constructed, the development will be a commercial Dutch Bros coffee building. City Council initiated the annexation process for this territory on March 7th with the adoption of Resolution 2023-42. And by conducting the public hearing tonight, carrying out the ballot procedure, and adopting the proposed resolutions before you, Council will complete the annexation process and the territory will be added to the district. Thank you.
All righty then. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
I don't have any cards. Does anyone wish to speak on item 8? Okay, and there are no hands raised online.
All righty, then I'm going to go ahead and close that public hearing, and I'm going to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-89. So move from, and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all righty then. Next, we're going to do
I'm
item
sorry.
9.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, you missed 92.
Oh,
2023-90. I thought you were going to do them separate. Sorry.
okay, I'll do that one too.
I need to open the ballot for the next one.
Oh, that's why
shit, we need
that's
to
why you did
way
it
back
separate.
up, see?
I received 3 ballots. Okay, from Druthers Construction LLC, 1 yes vote in favor of annexation. Read the next one. From Slover Investments LLC, another vote yes in favor of annexation. And lastly, BJB Investments LLC, another yes vote in favor of annexation.
All righty, then I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-90.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next.
Sorry, who moved it and who said?
Oh.
Rick? And second? Doug, thank
Doug.
you.
All right. When you're ready, item 9 then.
Okay, item 9. Public hearing and resolution 2023-91 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield annexing territory, StoreQuest Express Fairfield, to Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation and Park Maintenance, as annexation number 63, authorizing the levy of a special tax within the annexed territory, and submitting the levy of a special tax to the qualified electors thereof, and Resolution 2023-92 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield declaring the results of a special annexation election in territory annexed to Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, determining the validity of prior proceedings and directing recording of amended notice of special tax lien for City of Fairfield Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, annexation number 63, StoreQuest Express, Fairfield. And again, our presenter is Chris Lewis.
Good evening, everybody. Before you tonight is annexation number 63 for CFD 2012-2. The territory proposed for annexation is located south of the Sacramento Northern Railway and west of Horizon Drive. And once constructed, the development will be a single-story self-storage facility. City Council initiated the annexation process on March 7th with the adoption of Resolution 2023-43, and by conducting the public hearing tonight, carrying out the ballot procedure, and adopting the proposed resolutions, Council will complete the annexation process and the territory will be added to the district. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing.
And I do not have any requests to speak.
Anybody in the audience want to speak? Nobody online, Madam Clerk? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
And I'll open the next ballot.
Sorry, you need to do the resolution first.
Gotta-
First
Go ahead
resolution.
and vote on the resolution.
First resolution.
Oh,
Sorry.
2391. Council? 2023-91. Could I get a motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank you.
You're my body man.
This is from William Warren Properties. 3 yes votes in favor of annexation.
Are there any other ballots?
That time, just the one.
Just the one, alrighty. Then we're going to go ahead and entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-92. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, alrighty then. All right, that's it, guys. You did well. We're going to go ahead and close this meeting right now, adjourn until May 2nd, 2023. Thank you all. Thank you.
Did you make the first for that last one?